Hi BookTube, what's up? My name is Kim and welcome back to my channel Bookmarks and Breadsticks, a channel that focuses on everything food books, anything from a chef's food memoir to the history of obscure, fun, delicious treats. And a reminder, food books are not cookbooks. Today I'm actually here to talk about audiobooks. I set a TBR this year of 45 books. That was my Goodreads book goal, and I actually hit it in July. Partially, I think it's because of the pandemic. It left a lot of us bookish people with a lot of time to read. But one way I move through my reading list is with audiobooks. So I do use Audible for some of my books. I need to find an alternative that supports small bookstores or nonprofits. If you know of an alternative, just leave it in the comments below so I can look into it. But audiobooks are great. I never thought I was gonna like audiobooks. I used to be like, no, I want the hard books. Obviously, I like the feel in my hands, but I'm someone who walks 3 miles a day. I have to sometimes bike for at least an hour just to stay active, especially in these strange times. And when I walk, especially on days where it rains and I have to walk on the treadmill, I love putting on an audiobook. But I have learned after listening to 12 books now, I have learned some, not tips, but what I like and what I don't like about audiobooks. And I thought 2 great examples were to bring in The Temporary Bride and Red Meat Republic. These are 2 audiobooks I actually just finished this month. So a quick summary of each book. The Temporary Bride is about a woman who at the start of the book has run a small cooking school and then decides to go to Iran to rediscover her love of that cuisine there. This is a woman who comes from a lot of privilege and not a lot of stress or struggles in her life, but lives a little non-committal, if you will. She doesn't seem to be anchored to anything. So the book is about Jennifer Clinic. She's fearless in her 30s. She abandons her bland corporate job to launch a cooking school in her London apartment and travel the world in search of obscure culinary traditions. Her journey takes her to Iran, where she tucks her hair under a scarf and seeks out a local woman to learn the secrets of Persian cuisine. Vahid is suspicious of the strange foreigner who turns up in his mother's kitchen. Unused to such a bold and independent woman, he's frustrated to find himself the prized only son of a large house, largely ignored for the first time. But when the two are thrown together, a mutual attraction draws them together toward each other, but also pits them against the harsh Iranian laws and customs, which soon threaten to tear the unlikely lovers apart. So I had a couple issues with this audiobook. I actually would probably give this book entirely a 2 out of 5. My first big issue was that this book was not narrated by Jennifer herself. They actually picked a different narrator, which it's fine. I think number 1 tip for audiobooks is that if you can find the book and it's read by the author, it's always going to be so much better, because I think the author can emote and inject into that audio recording, because they know these are their feelings, this is their life, so there's a little bit more, there's a much, much deeper emotional attachment to it. Second, I think when a secondary narrator comes in, you really have to be careful on who you pick. This woman had a very even tone, but a very unemotional tone, and a little bit of a British UK accent. I'm not sure for where. But because of that accent, she really made Jennifer, this is her memoir, the focus of the book, really just like an awful person. Like, I didn't like Jennifer throughout this whole book, and I just wanted to finish it. She sounded so privileged, she sounded like she didn't care, and her falling in love with Vahid felt so vapid. It was like, oh, I'm gonna fall in love with this little 25-year-old Iranian man. Oh, he's a virgin, he's never loved anyone before, and a knock on the virginity thing is, their customs are very different there. My father is Iranian. I know this world a little bit better than most people. Now, I know I've never been to Iran. Obviously, I'm just the child of an immigrant, but a lot of what Vahid's going through, the narrator makes him sound like he's an idiot sometimes, and it's just not that way at all. It's just it's their world, and she's an intruder, and the way the narrator reads Jennifer's book, she makes Jennifer sound like this superior, ugly woman. Like, oh, I look down on him for his lack of experience with women, for why he's so devoted to his family. It just felt really bad. And I think I personally had a vendetta against it because I am someone who is desperate to go to Iran because that is where my father is from. I met my grandparents maybe 3 times my entire life. I would kill to go there. And this free-spirited woman is just like, I closed up my London school and left my house all alone to go to Iran because I loved Iranian food and I wanted to learn how. Like, okay, lady, can we have a little self-reflection that you're really lucky and you're really privileged, and that wearing a scarf, which is part of their tradition, is really not that big a deal. Like, she could have just, shut up. You can go somewhere else if you don't want to abide by the customs. Some customs seem extreme. You know, no holding hands in public with the opposite sex if it's not someone that's your brother or your father and you don't have your papers with you. I get it. That can seem a little old school, a little extreme. But wearing a scarf, wearing a headpiece, which is called a rusari or a hijab, like, I don't know. She rubbed me the wrong way, and she is so ungrateful. And maybe it's because she's from London that it was easier for her to go from London to Iran versus the US-Iranian relationships right now are garbage. I'll just say it, they're garbage. But I didn't like this book, and I was really disappointed. And I thought the pacing of the book felt weird too. We spent a good third of the book talking about her very unique childhood where she was super fiercely independent and what led her to this exciting cooking world. And then the rest of the book is about her falling in love and learning to cook, which is important. But it shouldn't have been marketed as like a food exploration book. This is really more of a love story. And I found that they end up together at the end of the book. And Vahid gives up his family and tradition to be with this woman, which is a similar situation to my own father. And then it ends. And I don't know if she really understood the sacrifices that he made to be with her. And it all could be based on the narrator. I hated this narrator. So that's that book in a long tangent review. And my first tip is if you can find if you can find an audiobook that is narrated by the author, listen to it. Even if you read the physical book, listen to it. It's so worth it. The other book I read or listened to that I just finished earlier today, Red Meat Republic, A Hoofed Table History of How Beef Changed America by Joshua Specht. Now this book transparently has been on my to-be-read list for over a year now. I bought it in May of 2019 at a small bookstore in Buffalo, New York when I was visiting my best friend and former roommate. I find historical audiobooks are a little bit easier for me, but the risk of an audiobook that's historical is that you can easily zone out while doing something else. So my second tip is for historical or data-based books, pay attention to the chapter markers and take a break. So what I did like about this book is that each chapter was maybe 20 minutes long max. And actually each part, like part 1, part 2, part 3, had a conclusion at the end of it. So hey, if you zoned it out, folks, don't worry. There's a conclusion at the end of each part so that you remember and take it away. So for example, the whole first section is war, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chapters. But at the end of the audiobook, they break out in the 5th chapter a conclusion. So it really paraphrases everything you need to know about the book. So this book is 252 pages, not including notes, index, works cited, and etc. It is very thorough. It is interesting. It starts all the way from when the first cattle came to America. I'm trying not to knock these over. Here they go. They're going to fall. Food history. Very different story, very different pacing of an audiobook versus a memoir, for example. Take breaks. Write down notes. That's the one thing. Take notes. Third step. So again, for two tips here. 1, take breaks. 2, take notes, because you're not going to be able to read the facts, especially numbers, populations. You're just not going to have access to that in an audiobook. Pay attention to the conclusions too. This one, it's a little bit harder to knock a narrator because it's very fact-based, so it's not always the most riveting thing in the world. I actually think the narrator of this audiobook did a really good job, consistent, putting emphasis on numbers with intonation, so you know that this is an important fact that you might want to be writing down. I would give this book another 3 out of 5. I've read other books about meat and cattle in America that I found more interesting than this one. This is very fact-based. There is no personal opinion or injection of emotions into it. So it's not a human or a guy traveling the world to learn about cattle in America. It's just a straight facts kind of book. So I think it's really important to have. It's good to understand the impact of how cattle really changed the American way. But this would be a good book if I was someone who did tabs. I would tab these facts. It would be a great book if you wanted to write an essay or something. It just doesn't have as much personality as something like a food memoir. So 3 big tips when picking out your audiobook. 1, if it's the author of the book narrating it, give it a shot, even if you own the hardcover. 2, take breaks when it comes to fact-based books so that you retain information. 3, take notes if you're reading a historical-based kind of book. The 4th thing I would say is it's okay to pause an audiobook and come back to it. I know some people say that's considered DNF. I don't believe that. Sometimes you have to be in the right mood. So 4 is put the book down if you want to. So for example, my fiance and I drove from Chicago, Illinois, all the way to New York. That is a long ass drive. But I would never listen to a historical book while driving because I'm gonna fall asleep at the wheel and we're gonna crash and we're gonna die. I would, however, listen to a memoir, which we did. We listened to The Temporary Bride while driving to New York. So I think knowing your medium, it's okay to mix and match your audiobooks based on what the occasion is. So when I was on the exercise bike or the treadmill, literally not going anywhere, and all I had to do was move forward, a fact-based book was fine. I actually sometimes listen to books while playing video games because I'm listening, and sometimes I'm just playing video games because I need the mindlessness to it. So those are my 4 tips when it, so those are my 4 tips. So those are my 4 top tips when it comes to using audiobooks. Oh, one more tip is that don't be afraid to download it on different vehicles. I listen to audiobooks from my phone, but I also have used my laptop when I'm like paying online bills or something and I still want to listen. So that's actually 5 tips. Awesome, I hit a nice number like 5. Let me know in the comments below. Do you like audiobooks? Have you considered giving them a try? Let me know. If you want to try out Audible, I am an affiliate, so you can use the link in the description below to get a free month, aka 1 free book, and you don't have to commit to a monthly plan. Obviously, I'm an affiliate. I will get some kickback if you do use my link below. So yeah, that's what I've got so far. That was my rant about a book that really disappointed me, but I do love audiobooks. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Happy reading, and I hope to see you guys in the next video. Bye.